upload the recording soon after we finish. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. So if you prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pen and the dial-in information will be displayed. The webinar will include 3 presentations of 20 minutes each on several SSTC topics, videos, and 10 minutes Q&A sessions. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to our experts by raising your hand and speaking, or sending your questions through the chat function. You may send in your question at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of each presentation. I would now like to introduce Anita Amorim, our expert for the first topic, and who is going to tell us about introduction to contextualization of SSTC and SDGs, International Program of the Elimination of Child Labor, and Fragile to Fragile Cooperation.
Hello, colleagues. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Fatima. Thank you for this introduction. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm going to quickly give you some elements of definition and landmarks on South-South cooperation. Many of you might already know them, but I think it's always good to have a little recap. And after that, we'll move on to videos on the other topics. So just as a matter of recollection, South-South and triangular cooperation is not something new. Often we think of it as something that's very recent. It's been actually as a concept since '55, since the Bandung conference in Indonesia, where we had Asia and Africa joining forces in terms of uniting for developing countries to get together and do projects together. And in terms of the United Nations, we have the '78 Buenos Aires Plan of Action. And this is already almost 40 years old. We will have the celebration Buenos Aires plus 40 very soon. And let's say in terms of the new landmarks, which are really using the word South-South, because before that we used to talk about technical cooperation between developing countries. We have a Nairobi outcome document of the high-level United Nations Conference on South-South. This was a conference in 2009, and the General Assembly adopted its results in 2010. We also have some operational guidance from the United Nations Office for South-South and Triangular Cooperation. Some of them were adopted in 2012 and 2014. It's always been fine-tuned by the high-level committee on South-South cooperation. In terms of the ILO, in 2012, we had a governing body strategy that was adopted on the South-South and triangular cooperation, the way forward. Finally, I think the very important landmark, of course, is the SDGs, because the SDGs, they have the Agenda 2030, and one of the elements of the agenda is partnerships for the goals, which you can see there in your screen. And they have South-South, North-South, triangular cooperation as important modalities. Just recapitulating some of the principles of Nairobi, as Nairobi was really, let's say, the kickstart of South-South as we call it today in 2009. Some of the important principles that were recalled in our ILO strategies is respect for national sovereignty and ownership, partnerships among equals, so not the idea of conditionality, so non-conditionality, non-interference in domestic affairs, mutual benefits, so working jointly for joint results, mutual accountability and transparency, development effectiveness, and a multi-stakeholder approach. So nowadays we talk a lot about multi-stakeholder approaches, and you can see this is already almost 10 years old. Some of the processes include, for example, in the case of the ILO, promoting and sharing good practices, but also integrating South-South and triangular cooperation in the decent war country programs. For the actors involved, we always think like South-South might be too different from other forms. It will be very similar in terms of engaging partners, but it should be a little more systematic in terms of the horizontality aspect. So you have the ILO's tripartite structures, governments, workers, regional international organizations, bilateral agencies, academic institutions, and especially networks, because one of the important principles of South-South cooperation is creating networks. In terms of modalities, you have the question of doing lots of capacity development activities. So, for example, this webinar is one of them, but we also had an academy for South-South cooperation last year that was very comprehensive. It's in the space that Fernando will show us soon. But also, we piggyback lots of other activities and academies, and we always try to introduce a South-South elective that we introduce this modality into the different SDGs and also the different forms of ILO's work. Finally, we also have the question of sharing experiences and good practices. This is the main aspect of South-South, study tours, sharing of experts, as often the financial transactions are not so big, building new partnerships and innovative partnerships, and also creating and strengthening networks and existing platforms. Finally, in terms of real modalities, we have working country to country through bilateral approaches, regional, interregional, sub-regional, city to city, and even fragile to fragile. We'll go into these modalities a little bit later, but just to show you that we have a rich amount of modalities. In terms of a kind of a step-by-step approach, the project cycle will be similar to a normal North-South. The main difference would be that you have to be a little bit more participatory, integrate better all the partners, avoid calling a South partner a donor. It's a very big no-no. You always should call them development partners. This is actually for all countries in the world. This was changed in Busan, but still, I think for the South it's even stronger. And also make sure that all stakeholders are present. Now, what would be the role for the ILO? The ILO brings the tripartite constituents together and is a facilitator for this. The ILO can actually store a lot of the knowledge that you produce into the different platforms, and the ILO would also make sure that all the South-South cooperation is done through, of course, the respect of all the ILO conventions. Finally, one thing that we do when we talk about the practices is some little criteria. For South-South, one of them is the question of horizontality of cooperation, because we're going away from that vertical North-South logic. It doesn't mean excluding the North, but it means that if countries in a region and sub-region want to cooperate, they can do so directly. There's also the aspect of triangular cooperation, meaning South-South-North, that a block of countries from the South can work together, but they can have the support of a country from OECD DAC, for example, or the U.S. government, for example. Normally, they should be innovative, adaptable, and sustainable. So in a nutshell, this is the approach we have for South-South cooperation. Now we're going to show a small video for you, and then I'll pass to the next topic. And after that, we have another topic and then questions. Thank you very much. So now we're going to pass to the second topic of the day, which is how South-South links up to child labor and forced labor. We are going to, as you can see there on your screen, so basically I think the important thing to note is that South-South and Triangular Cooperation as such as South-South, not just TCGC, which was a technical cooperation between developing countries, really started its first projects with child labor, combating child labor. So it gives them already, let's say, the IPAC Plus flagship, because forced labor followed as well, a very big reach out to many countries. It started off with the MOU from Brazil and ILO in 2005, and then a wider partnership agreement between Brazil and the ILO in 2009. This partnership included several countries, which then, of course, supported the work in these countries and sub-regions and regions. So we had the work of Brazil in combating child labor in country-to-country approach, as we saw, with Haiti, Bolivia, Ecuador, Paraguay, Timor-Leste, and Tanzania, but also in the sub-regional approach that we heard about in PALOP countries, the Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, and the Mercosur region. This, of course, doesn't stop, as I had mentioned earlier, the triangular cooperation aspect, and there was a support of the U.S. government also to this project. In particular, I wanted to mention Mercosur and PALOP, because it's an interesting approach. Also, I see some of you are from Asia, I think, because this was done in Mercosur and PALOP, so Africa and Americas, but you can do something similar for ASEAN. So for Mercosur, it was this group of countries of the South which compose the Mercosur bloc. They have worked together in some joint initiatives against child labor, joint declarations, working in the tri-border areas to prevent child trafficking and forced labor of children and adults. For the PALOP, something similar. The first project, as I had mentioned, was with Angola and Mozambique, but then it expanded to all Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, which are Angola, Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, São Tomé and Príncipe. The main idea being the promotion of Conventions 138 and 182 on the minimum age and the worst forms of child labor, but also working jointly for this promotion. Finally, I think a very good example of South-South and triangular cooperation in approach, a regional approach, is the Regional Initiative for the Americas. I think probably in your region you have something similar in ASEAN with social protection, not yet with child labor. And the interesting approach was that the entire region decided to have a child labor-free area by, I think, 2025, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, since 2013, when we had the Third World Congress on combating child labor, decided to join forces, unite in terms of combating child labor jointly. And with lots of peer-to-peer approaches, there are up to 99 initiatives, not all of them supported by the ILO, many are, but the ILO really has a role of facilitator. That being said, we'll show you a very quick video from the director of the IPEC Plus program, Fundamentals, and then we'll move on to the third topic quickly, and then open for questions.
My name is Priyanka Andres.
Thank you. This was for ITech Plus. Now, without much ado, I'll pass to the next and last topic of my blog. Then we'll move on to our colleagues. One of the interesting topics now is fragile to fragile cooperation. A lot of people are like, what does this really mean? So I'll just, in a nutshell, try to give you an appetizer, then we'll see a little video, and this will provoke some ideas, I hope. Currently, some 1.5 billion people live in fragile situations. Unemployment, inequality, lack of rights, conflict, fragility, questions related to climate change. This provokes a lot of situations that have led to many countries feel that they are fragile countries. In this sense, there was a group created in 2010 after the Busan conference that called themselves the G7+. The core mission of the G7+ was to promote peace building and state building for countries in transition and conflict-stricken. These are self-appointed countries that consider themselves fragile, and then they have decided to cooperate together. Between 2004 and 2013, the ILO has implemented over 360 projects in 38 states that have faced some kind of fragility, and the objectives were strengthening the capacity of constituents to play a greater role, creating jobs, extending social protection, and the policy of socioeconomic reintegration and poverty alleviation. Now, if we can give some landmarks, the ILO has signed in 2012 a memorandum of understanding with the G7+, has taken part in the 4th International Dialogue on Peace Building and State Building, and taken steps to initiate CT programs in affected by fragility. Thus, I think it's important to highlight that, in fact, it was 2013, the G7+ has accentuated this idea of fragile to fragile cooperation among countries of a similar situation. Finally, the ILO and the G7+ have signed a big memorandum of understanding focusing on this fragile to fragile cooperation, which has a very, very specific request and mandate for cooperating among countries of a similar situation. One would then imagine, does this exclude triangular cooperation? Does this create problems for other forms of resource mobilization? Not at all, because I think donors, partners actually like to see that countries are engaging through South-South cooperation in this fragile to fragile form, and there is also a possibility of engaging with partners and donors. Finally, the CPLP countries have some example of cooperation because the community of Portuguese-speaking countries have Timor-Leste cooperating with Guinea-Bissau and São Tomé, for example, and sharing materials which are already in the Portuguese language, and taking advantage of other South-South partners like Brazil or Portugal as part of the CPLP. The ILO has also supported a program on training for humanitarian assistance, disaster prevention, and post-environmental disaster recovery that always had a South-South approach and electives. This is through the Turin Center, so we have been able to train people from many countries and support to Angola, Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Haiti, Mozambique, Niger, São Tomé, Príncipe, Palestine, and Timor-Leste. Finally, I think the important thing now to do is to watch a little video by our colleague. We will cut it in the middle because it's a bit long, but it's just to show how also we're working practically with fragile to fragile cooperation, and we'll open for questions. Okay, so this was a video of Federico Negro, our colleague that most of you must know, dealing with fragile to fragile cooperation, and not only fragile to fragile, fragile in general. So I think we can now open for questions and answers. I think Fatma will animate that part of the debate.
Thank you, Anita. We're now going to begin answering the questions submitted during your presentation. And if you want to ask your question, please raise your hand. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the chat. Anita, our first question is from our colleague Mahendra Naidu, and he's asking if there are any good examples of SSTC in the area of social dialogue and industrial relations.
Hello, yes, Mahendra, there definitely are a couple of good examples. We are trying to mainstream the social dialogue module throughout because we actually had too many modules. So later on, I hope we'll have one just devoted to social dialogue. But we have, for example, a program like GLUE, Global Labor University, which we have supported through the South-South program, which is in fact, ILO plus Germany, a typical example of triangular cooperation in social dialogue. So it's a university planned by workers for workers, and India, Brazil, South Africa with the support of Germany. There are several other examples, like right now we have SDG trainings worldwide for workers' organizations, and they are mainstreaming the South-South cooperation dimension as a very critical part of SDG 17. I don't know if Christina and Fernando like to add anything? No? Okay. Any other questions?
We don't have any questions, but please feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you'll be able to ask questions. Anyone for questions? You can also write me on the chat if you want to.
I think if there's no more questions, we can move to the second part, but maybe just a little thing, Fatma, if I may, is this the right time?
We have another question.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question is, can you give more information on the role of North in triangular cooperation?
Thank you very much for the question. Basically, it's a very good question because people often ask what is the difference between triangular cooperation and traditional North-South cooperation. I think that the main difference here would be that the initiatives are South-driven and driven by the developing countries, and the North is coming as a support, either financial or technical, but not the initiatives are really coming from the South. I would say that is the main difference. So often, the main role is some form of financial support, but it could also be technical expertise. So we have the good example of the projects in South America that even got a kind of an award by the UN system of best kind of triangular cooperation. That was between countries in the Americas, funded by Brazil on combating child labor, but had some support from the US doll as well.
Okay, thank you very much. If I didn't receive any more questions. So if we don't have any more questions, we can keep going with the next session. Please feel free to write any of your questions in the chat, and we will take them in the Q&A session. Thank you, everyone. So moving on to the next session, I'd like to introduce Cristina Maldonado, and she's a page and STC expert for PARDEV ILO. She will talk to us today about contextualization in green job, social protection, and labor migration.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Fatma, for the introduction. I'm Cristina Maldonado, and I'm part of the Emerging and Special Partnerships Unit of PARDEV, which oversees the portfolio on South-South cooperation of the ILO. I'll be addressing South-South cooperation applied to 3 different topics: green jobs, social protection floors, and labor migration. So as you know, climate change is a fundamental component of the 2030 agenda and is relevant to all SDGs, as this has an impact on economy, migration, health, employment, and other areas. So it's important to address this issue with a holistic approach, taking into account the three pillars of sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental. So some countries from the South have already taken important steps towards inclusive green economies. And these experiences are very important and relevant for other countries facing similar challenges in the environment sector, social and economic challenges as well. And a good practice is, there's many kind of good practices that can be subject to a South-South cooperation initiative. So for example, can be incentives for clean production, changes at the institutional level, specific activities, or tripartite coordination mechanisms, which are in some countries very challenging to establish. So in the framework of the ILO South-South cooperation strategy, there are several initiatives that have been supported. For example, the exchange of experiences on employment-intensive investment programs, or as Anita mentioned, one of the modalities is supporting regional, interregional networks. There is the Green Jobs Assessment Institutions Network, which is the network of research and policy institutions in over 20 countries, and it promotes South-South research to better inform policies on clean production, on green economy, and promotion of green jobs. And more recently, we are supporting the mainstreaming of South-South cooperation in the framework of PAGE, which is the Partnership for Action on Green Economy. There are 5 UN agencies involved in this partnership, and they are working already with 11 countries, and more 10 countries are joining soon. So the experience from the countries that have already implement some of these initiatives are relevant for other countries that are joining, and they can guide them in the implementation process. So to finalize with this, I would like to play a video of Kamal Goye. He is the expert of the Green Jobs program of the ILO.
Disconnected. Cross.
That by doing so,
So sorry that we stopped the video, but we have seen the main parts of green jobs and how South-South cooperation can contribute to this, to the promotion of green jobs. So following the same format as Anita, I'm going to continue with the next topic, and at the end of the three themes that I'll be addressing, we'll open for questions. As you know, social protection floors are particularly important strategy to reduce poverty and inequality. 40% of the world population do not have access to basic social protection. So we have put many efforts to really promote South-South cooperation in this regard. There are several examples on this. For example, under the framework of the South-South and Triangular Cooperation Agreement between China and the ILO, social protection floors were implemented in Laos in Cambodia. There was an exchange of experiences to implement social protection floors based on specific needs of women and men. There was a important gender component in this project. Also in the framework of IFSA, India, Brazil, and South Africa, there was a fruitful exchange of experiences in conditional cash transfer programs and public employment programs, such as Manrega in India, Bolsa Familia in Brazil, and community works in South Africa. So there are countries that are willing to establish social protection floors, and there are other countries that are one step ahead that can guide them in this process, that have practical solutions to the same challenges that you can encounter during the implementation process. So this is very relevant for other countries, even if they do not have the same relative development level. The experiences are still relevant and can be adaptable to the new context. Valerie Schmidt, is further explaining this with the video that we'll be playing now. There you go. Yeah, so moving on to the next topic, which is labor migration. So we have seen so far how South-South cooperation has been useful to different areas of the ILO, but perhaps labor migration is one of the areas where cooperation is not only useful, but is essential. Over 50% of labor migration takes place between countries from the global south, mainly cross-border or within the same region. So this makes cooperation between countries of origin and destination extremely relevant to ensure a decent work for migrant workers, particularly in the framework of regional integration processes. Promoting cooperation between countries from the south leads to more regulated migration with appropriate data collection to better inform decision making and to better protect the rights of migrant workers. So to mention some examples, in 2014, there was a project between Mauritania and Senegal to exchange experiences between the two countries and to raise awareness of migrants on employability on both countries and on their rights. There is another interesting project on labor migration between Mexico and Guatemala for the protection of labor conditions for labor migrants of Guatemala and Mexico, and also to strengthen the registration and recruitment system. They exchange information on labor migration, and they are strengthening the monitoring system to better characterize labor migrants. They also established an observatory on labor migration that is being managed by both countries with the support of the ILO. I think this is it for now, so we will open now for questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Cristina. We're now moving on to questions for your topics, and I have Esther who has a question.
Hi, hello everyone. Good morning or good afternoon to many of you. I noticed that many of the participants come from field offices and regional offices, and I was wondering if I can hear from them on their experience on South-South, and in particular how those requests normally come in. Is it demand-driven, or is it something that field offices have to promote this modality as another option to provide technical advice or technical assistance? And really was just wondering and curious about what are the challenges faced on this kind of partnerships, this South-South and triangular cooperation partnerships. If you have these experiences already, and what happened, the challenges and the good practices too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. We can open the floor to anyone who wants to share their experience with on South-to-South cooperation. Please just let me know, and we will give you the floor. Otherwise, Anita, Cristina, or Fernando, do you happen to have any examples or lessons learned or stories shared from our colleagues in the field?
Hello. I was thinking of the examples that Cristina, actually that Valerie Schmidt mentioned in her video about the ASEAN social protection. I think that's a very good example of South-South and triangular cooperation driven by the region itself. So there was this wish from ASEAN countries to have exchanges on social protection and social security. And it was very good that, well, the Chinese government had some contribution to that. It was all with a South-South approach. So the exchanges were also captured in a book that actually you can find in the collection that Fernando will share with us later. So I think that in terms of field-driven experience is a good experience on the social protection side. Just going back to also Christina's example, maybe she wants to add something on labor migration. I think the question of migration nowadays is really cross-border and trans-border, so South-South becomes really a must in terms of approaches. So, for example, Guatemala-Mexico migration was all based on a bilateral agreement between the two countries, and then the tripartite constituents plus NGOs are trying to help migrants, workers' rights on both sides of the border. So I think this is pretty much a hot topic of the day. This is happening even in Europe, which is not South, so it's something that we have to be more vigilant and also more solidarity and supportive.
Okay, thank you so much. I would personally have a question. I would like to know if, when it comes to refugees migration and their integration to the labor market, if we think about migration of Libyan refugees to Tunisia, for instance, and then Syrian refugees to Jordan, is any partnership, or, I mean, is this anything, is it happening like some cooperation between Jordan and Tunisia to face these kind of challenges? And if we can call this South-South cooperation?
Okay. Thank you, Fatma. This is the difficult types of questions because they're more political. But yes, for example, with the Syrian crisis, there's cooperation between Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey, as you might know. And this would be a form of South-South cooperation, definitely, to support, let's say, hosting of the Syrian refugees, and then also the whole question of right to work and the different agreements between the countries. So, yes, this is a form of South-South cooperation. I don't know too much about Libyan refugees in Tunisia. I know there are, of course, a lot, but I don't know if you have ILO programs. But definitely, the cooperation between Tunisia and Libya would be a form of South-South cooperation, by all means.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't have any more questions submitted in the chat, so I think we can move on to our next and final session, and it's going to be with Fernando Batista, so our ILO consultant on South-South Triangular Cooperation. He's going to take us through some topics like city-to-city cooperation, local economic development, and social solidarity economy. We'll take your questions on those topics, and then he will give us a demo from the South-South Meeting Point, the virtual space. So, Fernando, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. I am Fernando Batista, and I work with ILO's Emerging and Special Partnerships Unit. In this session, we're going to talk now about South-South and Triangular Cooperation on local economic development and on social and solidarity economy, and also about cooperation between cities or city-to-city cooperation. So the focus now will be on South-South cooperation among local actors. So cities, local civil society organizations, academy, and sometimes even cooperatives or social enterprises. Always emphasizing the South-South principles such as horizontality, non-conditionality, and reciprocity. Local economic development, in particular, is considered as a key strategy for localizing the efforts in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is mostly because local actors are the ones who best know the problems and issues of the regions and communities. So, promoting South-South and Triangular cooperation among local actors, and particularly among cities, becomes an important element in the Agenda 2030. Local economic development and social and solidarity economy are very important also regarding job generation. Not only the creation of jobs, but decent jobs. The social and solidarity economy, in particular, turns out to be a spontaneous generator of decent jobs, since cooperatives and social enterprises are not only concerned with economic outputs, but mostly with the well-being of their members and their communities. The ILO has been organizing many South-South activities in the fields of local economic development and social and solidarity economy. So to mention some of them, some examples are related to the World Forums of Local Economic Development. So several editions of these forums have been organized in different countries, in Spain, in Brazil, in Italy. The next one is going to happen in Cape Verde. And also, ILO organizes academies on social and solidarity economy. So those are events in which ILO has been promoted and organized experience exchange dynamics among local actors from the South, not only through face-to-face sessions, but also using the internet to enhance these exchanges. So this sort of activities generated a huge amount of good practice, which were further organized in many ILO publications. I will show you some of those publications later when I show you the our meeting point for South-South Triangular Cooperation. Now we're going to see a brief video from Roberto Di Melio, who is Senior Specialist on Local Economic Development and Social and Solidarity Economy here at ILO Geneva. So we just saw a video from Roberto Di Meglio, and now we're going to open the session about questions and answers for this first part.
Thank you, Fernando. Before we move on to questions, I have a colleague, Honsul, who wants to share an experience with us. So I'm going to give him the floor.
Thank you, Esther, and hello, colleagues, everyone. I'm not sure you can hear me well, but you can hear me. Okay, good. Thank you. Well, it's trade unions in Asia and Pacific have enormous challenges inside and outside of the union organization, relating to the collective bargaining, decline of the union membership, and also that the wages in the region has been declining over the years, and also the migration is one of the pertinent issues to trade unions. So ACTRAV developed a South-South cooperation project with the financial support from the Chinese trade union, ACFTU, for promoting knowledge and information as well as experience among the trade unions within Asia. So that project identified the key challenges facing the workers and trade unions in the region and promote the union cooperation, which includes occupational health and safety, wages, sectoral collective bargaining, migration issues, and other issues. But I would like to give a short summary how we achieved the union challenges through the South-South cooperation. For example, on occupational health and safety, in Mongolia, the mine workers often face the accidents and facing fatal accidents and killing many people over the year. So that ACTRAV conducts a small study on it across the region, and then organize the regional seminar in Mongolia to address the issue of the occupational health and safety in mining, and then to draw attention from the public and the media. And then finally, campaign for the ratification of ILO Convention 176 on the safe work on the mining, OSH in mines. And then union used that regional forum to convince the government employers to process the ratification of Convention 176. Finally, somehow tripartite consensus reached an agreement to ratify the convention, and then it was ratified in the December 2015. That is one example of how the South-South cooperation was useful for promoting the OSH safe work in the mines, and then ratify the convention in Mongolia. And then another example is the wages. Across the Asia-Pacific region, the wages is a very important issue because living costs have increased, the inflation has been increased over the years, but the real wage has not been increased according to the economic growth and the inflation. And also some countries don't have the wage setting mechanism or legislation, but there is a high demand from the workers, especially as you could see, the strike took place in the garment sector, demanding higher wages. So this South-South cooperation project organized several regional seminars to share the knowledge on the national level, legislation, practice, and then role of the trade union in increasing minimum wages. So thanks to the several regional events, so the union have put up the knowledge about the wage setting mechanism differently in many different countries, and also the legislation system. And then finally, many other countries adopted the new legislation, like Malaysia adopted new legislation on the minimum wage setting. In the past, they don't have that one. And then Cambodia increased the minimum wage substantially over the years. And then Myanmar, they also adopted the minimum wage act. And then Mongolia also adopted the new wage system. Overall, this South-South cooperation contribute to empowering knowledge of the trade union and then strengthen the collective bargaining power on the wage increase with employers and government. That is another example I'm giving. And then another example on the migration. Migration in Asia is overall is very, very important in terms of the employment and also economic growth. And many countries in Asia is a sending country to Middle East or inside Asia. So trade union is now the promoting the bilateral cooperation between trade unions in sending and receiving countries. And then this project also contributes to promoting the bilateral cooperation between Vietnam Trade Union and Malaysian Trade Union. They signed that MOU for the bilateral cooperation for protection of the migrant workers' rights in March 2015, and the Cambodian Trade Union and Thai Trade Union signed the MOU in November 2014. And also trade unions in South Asia and trade unions in Arab states signed the MOU in July 2015, and then they are going to have a bilateral meeting in April this year in Beirut to review the implementation of the MOU signed earlier, and then develop a more concrete action plan. And also that action plan includes how union play the important role to implement Kathmandu Declaration on the migration, which will be adopted soon by the SAARC member state. And then the union will also articulate the role to pressurize, lobby the government to improve the bilateral cooperation to promote more protective regime on migration. These are some examples I'm sharing with you concerning the South-South cooperation. I hope you could hear clearly about the role of the trade union in promoting the South-South cooperation, and then how the South-South cooperation mechanism and concept has been useful for trade union activity, and also their role in the industry relationship.
Thank you so much for this great sharing of experience. I wonder if our colleagues, presenters, and maybe Esther wants to comment on that.
Hi, Fatma. On that, yes, I'd like to thank Bong Fu, because I was on the other side of the globe helping on the negotiation in Geneva for this agreement to be signed here, so that everything was going smoothly. And I think what is very, very interesting is the first South-South agreement with trade unions, and also through a PPP, because as it's with workers, thanks to the modality, we have to use a PPP modality. So I think it's a very unique South-South cooperation methodology between unions, and definitely to be quoted and shared with all the regions. So I thank you very much, Pongsu. There's also, I think, a question from Samar to everybody, no?
Yes, indeed. So Samar posted on the chat, and she said, I was just wondering if you can give diverse examples of projects that have been undertaken in Asia and Arab states in terms of SSE and LAED and city-to-city cooperation. I guess that's a question for Fernando.
Okay, so yes, there are many examples. I'm going to mention some of them. In Asia, there are a couple of examples related to job creation. So in Vietnam, in Sri Lanka, and Philippines, those are projects related to tourism and employment for youth. So those are city-to-city cooperation examples. And specifically about social and solidarity economy, I would like to share with you a publication. I'm going to share my screen here and briefly show this publication. That's actually it's a compilation of many examples of South-South and triangular cooperation on the field of social and solidarity economy. So I will just share with you my screen right now. And so this is the document I mentioned, Social and Solidarity Economy in Asia, so South-South and Triangular Cooperation Perspective. And here, just to give you an idea, we have definitions of concepts, examples of projects, and have you have annexes with described experiences. So I would recommend you who are interested in specific cases in Asia to have a look at these documents, and you're going to find a lot of information here.
Now, on the question on Arab states, we don't have too much ILO-driven or ILO-supported SSC or city-to-city. But there is, of course, definitely city-to-city cooperation in the Arab states, especially in the framework of the refugee crisis. City-to-city cooperation is essential. I think we have to do some work and some homework in documenting better these experiences.
Okay, great. I think we can move on to the demo, and maybe that's a great opportunity since it's going to allow everyone to see where they can find all the publications and to see where they can find information on the topic. So I'm going to give the floor to Fernando for the demo.
Okay, so now I'm going again to share my screen with you, and we're going quickly to explore the South-South meeting point on that basically is a space that we have created. It's an interactive space we have created in which people they can access materials and documents and pretty much everything that we have been collecting through ILO's work on South-South Triangular Cooperation for the past years. And but besides being a huge library of information, documents, videos, it's also a space, an interactive space where people they can meet, they can share their experiences, they can engage in conversations with other people. So basically, this is the main screen of the South-South point. The address to access the space is southsouthpoint.net. And when you come to this main page, you basically see three columns. So the first one is related to news, and here you are going to find pretty much everything that's happening about South-South and Triangular Cooperation related to ILO's activities. So you are going to see news about events, about release of documents, and this is also a history of what has been happening for the past years. So we have started this space in 2013, so there is a lot of material that has been accumulated in the space, and you can somehow to access the history of what has happened since the beginning of those activities. In the middle column, we basically have a library of documents and materials. So this first button, main collection, here we have all documents, articles, and pretty much all publications that are relevant to South-South and Triangular Cooperation, mostly from ILO. And we have this in different languages. So in this main folder, you can see the documents in English, but you have also folders for other languages. And besides the main collection of documents, we have a YouTube channel, and here we have a huge collection of videos about related to many topics, and also videos from events. So it's a huge collection. All videos you have been seen in this webinar, they are available here in this channel. Some of them in multiple languages. So it's a very interesting pool of materials. And the third bar basically has interactive channels that can be used by you to share your experiences, to engage in conversations with other people. So we have here discussion groups on social media. I encourage you to join the Facebook group, which is a very active conversation group on South-South cooperation. Here, an example we have here, a video from a recent event that you can see Anita here. So we have been using this space to share information, and people who are part of this South-South Anti-Regular Cooperation community, they are very engaged in those conversations. One space which is very important is the space for the first South-South Anti-Regular Cooperation Academy that happened last year in Turin. So here you can find the pre-learning phase of the academy, which are basically a learning space that participants, they use it to cover the main topics and contents before they met together face-to-face in Turin. So here we are going to have, for each one of the modules of the academy, you are going to have materials about the topic, brief explanations, and videos, but most important, you are going to have here in the bottom of the page, you're going to have a discussion forum, and you can somehow access the discussions that the participants they had before the academy, their doubts, they also share the experiences. So it's a very interesting, very rich set of information. Those forums, they are open, so if you want to engage in the discussions, to make comments, and to post information related to those modules, you can do that. And we also have another space that's related to different topics, South-South Anti-Regular Cooperation in different topics. So here, those spaces, they are also interactive, where you can also share experiences. I'm just opening one of them. I opened the labor migration one quickly. So here you have, it's a subspace dedicated to labor migration, one of the topics you have covered here. We can see the discussion forum below. And also in this space, besides the themes, we have some interactive spaces for events. So one of them was the space created for the Expo, the Global South-South Development Expo 2016. So I will just show you quickly this. This was also used for participants of the Expo, so they could share information and know each other before the Expo. And also one important, one event that's going to happen pretty soon, in about 1 month, is an event in Casablanca, that's South-South Cooperation for Decent Work in Africa. So it's going to be a workshop that aims at creating a framework for South-South Cooperation in Africa. So, and also this space is going to be used by participants of this event. So we have already here the draft document for the event. We have also videos and also a discussion forum that's going to be used pretty soon by the participants of the event. So Yeah, I think I just covered the most important parts of the South-South meeting point, and later if you have questions, if you want to more information about how to use it, you can ask right now, or you can write us and we're going to be happy to help you with any information we can.
Thank you so much, Fernando, for the demo. We have one question submitted by our colleague Mahendra, actually two questions. The first one being, has the focus of South-South cooperation initiatives changed much over time? And the second question is, what are the trends and what would be the major areas of current South-South cooperation initiatives?
I didn't understand very well the question. The major trends of South-South cooperation initiatives globally, or linked to the presentation of Fernando on SSC and LED?
Maybe we can ask Mahendra directly. Mahendra?
Sure, thanks. No, I'm trying to find out globally what would be the major changes. You know, if over the last 40 years, has it shifted much in terms of focus? Is, for example, social protection a bigger focus in respect of South-South cooperation initiatives? You know, what is likely to happen in the future in terms of priorities from a South-South perspective, and how is this likely to impact on the ILO's work going forward? I'm not sure if that's clear.
No, that's pretty clear. Thanks so much for your question. I think it's a good question. You see a real evolution of South-South in the past, let's say, 60 years, which started really first as countries of Africa and Asia uniting in Bandung, and then later in the 70s, TCDC, which is technical cooperation between developing countries, so mainly technical cooperation, until we reach the 90s and 2000s, and which the approach is pretty much more linked to not only technical cooperation, but also peer-to-peer approaches, sharing of good practices, and new modalities such as city-to-city and fragile-to-fragile. But in terms of, like you're asking, the themes for the ILO and the impact on the ILO, I think the themes, if you look in terms of portfolio of South-South and the main partner countries which are supporting South-South, which is basically BRICS countries plus Panama, Turkey, Qatar, Algeria, let's say, Russia, well, it's part of BRICS anyway. So you will see that the biggest portfolio is actually child labor, forced labor, social protection, followed by later, let's say, green jobs and other topics. But the big portfolios will really be linked to child labor, forced labor, followed by social protection in terms of dollar terms. But of course, that also has to do with what people are demanding in terms of South-South cooperation. So there's lots of areas like migration, social dialogue, you know, we have lots of other skills development, PPPs, but these are a little bit still less lagging behind compared to the two big trends. And I think in terms of like major trends and impact on the ILO, I think the Agenda 2030 is definitely one with this focus on South-South. But also I think the possible impact of some partner countries may be diminishing their contribution to the UN, let's say the traditional one. So that would of course make a stronger impact for emerging partners to have a bigger role. And I don't know if I want that.
Thank you so much, Anita. And Mahendra says thank you too. I don't know if we have any more questions from anyone, or any comments or any concerns that people want to share. If not, I think we're gonna close for today. But I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Anita, Fernando, and Cristina for the great lectures, videos, and for taking questions today. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar on South-South and Triangular Cooperation. You will receive a follow-up email from us. Oh, okay. Yes. So you'll receive a follow-up email from us within 24-88 hours with a link to view the recording, because, as I said in the beginning, we recorded this webinar, and contacts of our experts if you have any more questions. All the related documentations and everything that our experts went through will be available on the DC platform. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact us. I don't know if Anita, Fernando, Cristina has any words to say. Yeah?
Yeah, just a quick note to ask once more, because I think it was very useful to hear from Pongsul and now from Mahendra. So if anybody would have some last question that, I mean, maybe not really question, like sharing of information, that would be fantastic. And also asking if our presentations flow, because it's the first time we do it, well, we did some dry runs, but it's the first time we do it all together with all the technology plus the demos, if it went well. And if so, please be in touch with us for us to share with you all the documentation. But maybe Fernando and Cristina want to say last word.
Yes, I just want to thank you everybody for participating, and to say that we're here available to help you in any way we can. So if you have questions, doubts, so don't be shy to write to us.
Okay, so we have one comment from Pongsul and one from Samar. Pongsul said, please be informed that in Asia and the Pacific we have two major South-South cooperation projects related to wages and occupational safety and health as a global flagship. And then Samar said, is there any big future events coming up in terms of SSTC?
Yeah, I think the first big event that I could refer to is this that Fernando mentioned, the Casablanca event, because it's for the entire Africa region for the ILO. So it's a big stock taking of South-South cooperation in Africa. So I'd invite all of you to read the paper that he has showed that is in the platform. If you don't manage to reach it through several clicks, we'll walk you through it. And then I think there's several events like the Global South-South Expo that will be, I think, towards the end of the year, and other smaller events which are linked to solidarity economy, city-to-city cooperation. There'll be a big event in Praia on local economic development in October that will have a South-South angle as well. And we have a series of electives working with Turin on BRICS and also silver economy. Maybe Cristina, you want to share from your project. Cristina, she's in an interagency UNEP UNITAR ILO project. There might be some events coming up from that side.
Well, as I mentioned during the Green Jobs presentation, we are trying to mainstream South-South cooperation in the framework of PAGE. There is no event coming up, but we are organizing a webinar like this one for national coordinators of these initiatives in the 11 PAGE countries. So your feedback will be also very useful for us to take into account for those webinars. And just as a general note, the Global South-South Development Expo is a yearly event organized by the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, and all the organizations, the UN agencies linked to South-South Cooperation participate and organize a forum in the framework of this event. And normally there is it's focused on a specific theme. So, for example, youth employment, gender, or green economy, etc. So, Anita just shared with you the link that you can have a look at it.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't see any more questions or any more comments, so I think we're gonna close for today. So as Anita and our Esther said, you can contact us if you have any questions or concerns, and we'll follow up shortly after this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.